Good morning, y'all. I thought about something last night. And I've been curious about the Darkspilver thing. I haven't heard an update on that, but I know one is coming soon. But I started thinking about the ARC. I feel like we need to point out something about the difference between the two testimonies or arguments or whatever you want to call them in these two cases, or court hearings. Do you remember in the ARC where the people who testified and presented information on behalf of Watchtower couldn't answer a question? If they were asked something about disassociation and disfellowshipping, and Angus was trying to clarify or get information or actually have them spill their guts about this blatant violation of human rights, this obvious cruelty, they didn't know. It wasn't their department. They passed responsibility and knowledge keeping around in a great big circle. I really couldn't say, or that's not the way I understand it, or this and that and whatever. And they wouldn't fess up to anything. They wouldn't own it. They didn't know. We all know they know. I did, as part of another research project, this is part of the reason I drop off of YouTube for forever, because I get into a rabbit hole and it's just way too much information and I get stuck just looking at it. I did a little research project, and in the Watchtowers alone, they mentioned disassociation and disfellowshipping in at least one paragraph of the study articles. A minimum. I know the exact number at home, but they mention it a minimum of 24 times. There is a specific study article in the Watchtower, at least yearly. We know it's probably covered in public needs and at the midweek meetings, and that it's in different publications. There is a book that you're supposed to give people that you find in the ministry that, are no longer with Jehovah, and it's come back to God. There's a book for it. There's so many resources about this that they expect the rank and file to know, and yet these heads of the committee just keep passing the buck. And I know Angus knew it was total BS, but of course they didn't have a means to prove that and obligate them to be honest. There's no documentation anywhere. It's all it's basically a collection of documents that you have to put all together like a great big puzzle. And they didn't have the means for that. But I know that Angus knew it was total BS. Then comes the Darkspilver case. Darkspilver does not want his identity identified. I'm saying his because that is the gender that he chose for his doe identity. He doesn't want his identity revealed because of the disfellowshipping and disassociation issue. And the EFF has been very clear and very bold on their stand on this. And they've made some really good arguments. If they weren't informed before, I'm going to say that Darkspilver, among others, have filled them in very well. So it got to the point where in their argument that they should have the identity, Watchtower's attorney says, and their argument for that, you know, the organization, it's not the organization. They pass the buck to the elders. But the elders are doing what the organization tells them to do. So they could just pass that buck back and forth to each other until one of them passes out, for all I care. But they're both responsible. The organization doesn't disfellowship people. Then later on, but even if they did, it would be their protected right as a religion, basically, to violate human rights. He goes on further to explain that it's an integral function of their faith. Integral means you can't really do without it. Like, this is their main means of control. They really can't do without it. They wouldn't have gotten as big as they are without having that integral part of their faith. But if it's integral and they publish so much information to keep the rank and file straight on it, how do the rank and file know more than like the people that actually run the place? They just said in the Watchtower's argument to Darkspilver, it's integral to their faith. You can't be a rank and file member without being able to answer every single question that Darkspilver asked. Unless, of course, you're asking about the Shepherd, the Flock of God book. Because that's supposed to be secret. But I call total BS. Like, total BS. And there's actually like an established law that you basically can't have your cake and eat it too. Like, you can't make the argument in one court case and present the information about yourself this way, and then go to another court case and try and change this part over here, like completely disregard this part. You can't. And I think if attorneys were smart, they'd pick up on this. If nothing else, to prove that they intentionally frustrate the system. Because that's all they did in the Australian Royal Commission. There we go. That's all they did. They did it on purpose. They were totally willing to fess up and use it as an argument over here. Like, I think it is getting deep. I think it is about to kind of blow up in their faces. And I think they're leading to a really unglamorous revelation. Everybody's going to know about them, and it's coming soon. Not soon enough, but they are literally setting themselves up for it. They are literally setting themselves up for it. It's like they're taking their organization and putting a blindfold on it and playing pin the tail on the donkey on the edge of a cliff. Like, it's coming. The people are going to start pointing this mess out. It's going to show up in court. Anyhow, that's my thoughts. I think if attorneys were smart, they'd pick up on this and make sure that they point this out, that, you know, there's evidence of intentional frustration of the system. And somebody's going to be held liable soon. It's coming out. Even my, I've got worldly friends and family that have pointed out that you never used to hear anything, and now they're seeing a lot of bad press. Like, what's going on? Of course, I'm happy to share. I'm not lying. This is all testimonies. It's not apostate to share testimonies from the Watchtower. Anyhow, y'all have a good one. I'm going to work.